Hello, 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 hello. So welcome to our next chapter. That is your chapter number 14 is this return. So we are covering this from our IDT in 50 pages. So your return chapter basically has three things. That is what return number it is. That is what is the GSTR number. Second is who filed it. How frequently do you have to file it and what will be the date of filing. So we will start with GSTR 1. Now your GSTR 1 is your details of your outward supply. That means whatever outward supplies you have made, whatever supplies you have made, that will be shown in GSTR 1. Now in GSTR 1, this is bifurcated into two because of the QRMP scheme. So a person with turnover up to rupees 5 crore, that means if his turnover is 5 crores or less, when in the preceding financial year, if in the preceding financial year his turnover is up to 5 crores and he has opted for the QRMP scheme. Now this also includes your casual taxable person. So if it is less than 5 crores and opted for QRMP scheme, QRMP's full form is quarterly return monthly payment. So therefore your return will be filed quarterly, but your payment will be done monthly. Okay, now your date of filing of return will be 13th of the month succeeding the quarter. Now for example, if your quarter was April to June, that is April, May and June. So this quarter's return, remember in a quarter there are 3 months. So this quarter's return you have to file by July. July which date? You have to file by 13th of July. Okay, coming to your other part, for if a person was not opted for your quarterly return, so a person under regular scheme, it also includes CTP. So in such a case, it will be monthly and date of filing will be 11th day of the next month. So that means if you have to file return for the month of April, it will be done by the 11th of May. Okay, next is your GSTR 3B. Your GSTR 3B is your person with turnover, same bifurcation, person with turnover up to 5 crores in preceding financial year and opting for QRMP scheme. GSTR 3B will also be quarterly and the date is 22nd in some states, 24th in some states. So therefore it is 22nd or 24th of the month depending upon the state. Okay, and if a person is under regular scheme, of course GSTR 3B is also monthly, so that will be by the 20th of the month. So main very important are these two forms, that is GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B. Coming forward is your GSTR 4. Your GSTR 4 is for people who have opted for composition tax. That is any person who has opted for composition tax. So return for composition taxable person. Remember, this is not CTP. CTP is your casual taxable person. So return for composition taxable person, they will file the return annually. That means only once in a year. That is your GSTR 4. And this will be done by 30th April of the next financial year. So your year ends on 31st March. So this year's return you have to file by 30th April of the next financial year. Next is your GST CMP 08. So this is a statement. Remember, this is not a return. This is a statement. So it is a statement for payment for composition taxable person. So even though his return he is furnishing annually, his payment will be done quarterly. So this is your 18th day of the month succeeding the quarter. So whenever your quarter ends, the next month 18th date will be your due date. Next is your GSTR 5. Now remember, your GSTR 5 is for your non-resident taxable person, that is your NRTP. So GSTR 5 NRTP, this return is monthly and it will be earlier of 13th day of the next month. So since this is a monthly return, it is 13th day of the next month or 7 days after expiry of registration. That means since they are allotted a registration for some particular period of time, if the registration gets over and 7 days have lapsed, that will be the due date. That is 7 days after expiry of registration. Okay, next is your GSTR 5A. Your GSTR 5A is with regards to your OIDAR service provider. This is also monthly. So if you see lines, say all of these are monthly returns. So OIDAR service provider monthly, it will be the 20th day of the next month. Then you have GSTR 6. GSTR 6 is by your ISD, that is your input service distributor. So in such a case, I hope everybody knows what an ISD is. We have already discussed this in our previous chapters. This return is monthly and it will be 13th day of the next month. Then your GSTR 7 is for a TDS deductor. So remember, these are your section 51 and 52. That is people who deduct TDS come under section 51. They were all your government companies, public sector units, undertaking, etc., etc. and your TCS was basically your eco, that is your e-commerce operator. So this is your section 51 people, this is your section 52 people. TDS deductor, this is monthly and 10th day of the next month. TCS collector, that is your 8. GSTR 8, that is also monthly and that is also 10th of the next month. So what you have to remember, TDS and TCS are both 10th of next month, both are monthly returns. One is with regards to TDS, one is with regards to TCS. First is TDS is 7, TCS is 8. Okay, now your GSTR 9 is a registered person other than an ISD, TDS, TCS, CTP and NRTP. So all other people apart from this, they have your annual return, that is 31st December of the next financial year. So basically all your normal people come under GSTR 9. Then your GSTR 9B is annual, is your TCS collector. So TCS collector, the person who collects TCS, his annual return is comes under GSTR 9B and that has to be done by 31st December of the next financial year. Both of them have the same date. Next is your GSTR 10. Your GSTR 10 is the final return. Okay, so 10 is your final return. It is when registration has been surrendered or cancelled. This will be your last return. This is your final return, and this will be later of within 3 months of date of cancellation or date of order of cancellation. That is your due date for the submission of return. Next is your GSTR 11. GSTR 11 is details of inward supplies. So for a person who have been issued a unique identity number, that he has to file a GSTR 11. Okay. Now GSTR 9 annual return need not be filed if the aggregate turnover is up to 2 crores. So as you remember, we did GSTR 9 is your annual return. So this need not be filed if your return is up to 2 crores. That means equal to or less than 2 crores, you need not file GSTR 9. And there is a IFF, that is your invoice furnishing facility. So invoice furnishing facility is an option provided to quarterly taxpayers. Remember, under QRMP scheme we did, there is a monthly option, there is a quarterly option. So it is an option provided to quarterly taxpayers in QRMP scheme to file details of outward supplies up to 50 lakhs per month. So if your turnover is up to 50 lakhs per month, if your aggregate outward supply is up to 50 lakhs per month, then in the first 2 months of quarter to pass credit to suppliers. So in such a case, this is a special facility given to them. Because what happens, you will be furnishing at the end of 3 quarters, but they have been given an option that boss, you can do this, you can provide it option to provide it to quarterly taxpayers in QRMP scheme to file details of outward supplies in first 2 months of quarter. Because if you do not file your return, if you do not file your return for 3 months, your creditor, your supplier will not get your supplier will not be receiving this credit, right? Because you have not uploaded these invoices. So therefore, IFM gives this option that was in the first 2 months you will be allowed to put your invoices so that your supplier will be eligible to take this credit. Because now only and only if you have put your invoice, only and only if you put your invoice under the return, only then will they get the credit. There is no rule of 10%, 5%, nothing. It is only and only if one person has put that invoice in his outward supply will it be shown as inward supply in the other person. Okay, next is your QRMP scheme. So your QRMP scheme is your optional. It is an optional. Remember, it is not compulsory. So it is optional quarterly return filing scheme, monthly payment. The payment has to be done in what form? That is your GST PMT 06 by 25th of the next month. So if you remember, your date for filing of the return was 13th of the next quarter. That is the next month of the quarter. And for payment, it is 25th of the next month. Next is your eligibility. Eligibility, your turnover should be up to 5 crores in the preceding financial year. Therefore, over here I had mentioned that your turnover should be up to rupees 5 crore, because otherwise you will not be eligible itself for your QRMP scheme. So your turnover should be less than 5 crores. Next is exercise option. So you will be allowed to opt in any quarter. Okay, I will need some space to explain this. Opt in any quarter from first day of second month of preceding quarter to last day of first month of quarter for which option is being exercised. If you want, pause the video, try to understand what they're saying. I will tell you by example. So for example, you have your quarter, that is your April, May, and June. Okay, this is your first quarter, and your next quarter is your July, August, and September. So what does it say? Exercise: opt in any quarter from first day of the second month of preceding quarter. So first day of second month. Okay, so this is your first month, this is your second month, this is your third month. So if you want to take your scheme for this quarter, if you want to take for the quarter July to September, you are allowed from the period 1st of May. What does it say? It says first day of second month of preceding quarter to last day of first month of quarter for which option is being exercised. I am exercising my option for this quarter. So I will be allowed. April has 30 days. So January, February, March, April, May, June, July. July has 31 days. So I will be allowed till 31st July. I will be allowed from 1st May to 31st July to opt this scheme for the quarter July to September. Okay. Next is option is GST and Y. That means you can take it for some GST numbers, and for some GST numbers you might continue to do the normal monthly return. That means it does not mean that one PAN number and everybody, all the GST numbers connected with that PAN number have to take QRMP scheme. It is possible that in Maharashtra I am doing QRMP and in other states I am not doing QRMP. I am under the normal scheme. Okay. Now options for making monthly payment of tax. So in such a case, first is your fixed sum method and second is your self-assessment method. So fixed sum method, 35% of the tax paid in cash in the preceding quarter where the return was furnished quarterly. So you have to pay 35% of the tax in the previous quarter itself where the return was furnished quarterly. Tax liability paid in cash in return for last month of immediate preceding quarter where return was furnished monthly. So if your return was furnished monthly, in such a case, tax liability has to be paid in cash in return for the last month of immediate preceding quarter where the return was furnished monthly. And second is your self-assessment method, that is payment by considering tax liability on inward and outward supplies and ITC available. So in this you self-assess. Over here you directly pay 35% of the tax in cash. This is your meme that got very popular, so I put it so that you remember that there are only 3 months in a quarter. A lot of students do this mistake. They'll put 4 months in a quarter. Sir, quarter is 4. No, quarter is 4 parts. So 4 parts of 12 is 3 months. Okay. No interest under the fixed sum method, even if liability is found to be higher, provided the 35% was paid on due date. That means, for example, if you paid less than what your actually liability turned out to be, there will be no interest, provided the 35% was paid on due date and GSTR 3B of the quarter is filed by the due date. So first of all, your 35% also has to be paid by due date and your GSTR 3B also has to be filed by the due date. Okay, next is your revision of return. So I'll just erase this so that we can go ahead with our chapter. We finished this chapter only, nothing major in this chapter. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So next is your revision of return. That means you have already filed the return, but now you want to make changes. So no mechanism to file revised return for any correction of errors or omission. Rectification will be allowed in your subsequent return. That means your return that you have once filed is filed. You will only be allowed to rectify in a subsequent return. That is your next return. No rectification allowed after. So there is a date for this also, that boss, we will not always allow you to do it. There will be a date for it. So 30th November of the succeeding financial year. Remember, there is an amendment over here. Earlier it was a different date. Now it is 30th November. So it is 30th November of the succeeding financial year or the date of furnishing your relevant annual return, whichever is earlier. So 30th November or the date when you have actually furnished your annual return, whichever is earlier. Penalty. So if you fail to furnish statements, returns under section 39 and final return by due date, your penalty will be 100 rupees per day and maximum it will extend to rupees 5,000. That means if If you do it for 50 days, till 50 days we will do the penalty. Till 51st days it will be the cap of 5,000. If you fail to furnish annual return, that is your GSTR 9 or 9A, by the due date, over here it will be 100 rupees per day. Over here also it was rupees 100 per day. But the maximum was an absolute figure, that is your 5,000. Over here, your maximum is 0.25% of turnover. So what does this mean? That if you don't make your annual, if you don't furnish your annual return, then they will do it on your annual turnover, that is 0.25% of your turnover. Okay, and with this we are done with our chapter, and I will see you in the next one, that is your important